Live in the tent right now.
Oh, we are?
We're live in the tent right now.
2019! Right?
Okay, 19. Look that for you, right? Excitement.
que todavía no nos estamos metidos en esto. Sí. Guys, smile, please, please smile. Hey, how are you? We're very happy actually today. You know?
Procession.
Timothy Solomon and Dr. Tanya Mason. They were assisted by Campus Student Senate representatives, Ms. Rochelle Anu, Mr. Edmund Benio Flores, Ms. Maureen Brisbane, and Ms. Mava Devine. Good morning, class of 2019. Students, please rise and remain standing. Chief Marshal, Ms. Kathy Giovanetti. The Workforce Development and Continuing Education faculty and staff, led by Professor Michael Coretta. The Germantown faculty and staff, led by Dr. Joseph Thompson. The Takoma Park, Silver Spring faculty and staff, led by Dr. Michael LeBlanc. The Rockville faculty and staff, led by Professor Sheila L. Montgomery College administrators and central services staff, led by Ms. Nancy Newell. Our 2019 Commencement Platform guests, the bearer of the mace, 2019 Outstanding Full-Time Faculty Member, Professor Tyra Pinort. '19 Outstanding Part-Time Faculty Member, Professor Albert Kapikian. Ms. Donna Shenna, Interim Senior Vice President for Administrative and Fiscal Services. Dr. Donna Kinnearney, Instructional Dean, Workforce Development and Continuing Education. Mr. Michael Philip Gibson, Workforce Development and Continuing Education, Apprenticeship Board of Trustees Scholar. Mr. George Payne, Vice President and Provost, Workforce Development and Continuing Education. Mr. Marcus Pinort, Associate Dean of Germantown Student Affairs. Ms. Marie-Alexandre Adam, Germantown Campus Board of Trustees Scholar. Ms. Margaret Latimer, Vice President and Provost, Germantown Campus. Dr. Kim Kelly, Vice President and Provost, Rockville Campus. Ms. Shamim Azad, Rockville Board, Campus Board of Trustees Scholar. Dr. Rodney Redmond, Instructional Dean, Rockville Campus. Dr. Brad Stewart, Vice President and Provost, Takoma Park, Silver Spring Campus. Mr. Benjamin Bromley-Coolidge, Takoma Park, Silver Spring Campus Board of Trustees Scholar. Dr. Monique Davis, Interim Dean of Health and Sciences and Director of Nursing. Dr. Monica Brown, Senior Vice President for Student Affairs. Dr. Michael Britnall, Montgomery College Board of Trustees. Ms. Gloria Aparicio Blackwell, Montgomery College Board of Trustees and first Vice Chair. Ms. Mindi Jacobson, honorary degree recipient. Dr. Leslie Levine, Montgomery College Board of Trustees and second Vice Chair. Mrs. Catherine Leggett, honorary degree recipient. Mr. Isiah Leggett, honorary degree recipient. Dr. Kenneth Hoffman, Montgomery College Board of Trustees. Mr. Elias Woldu, honorary degree recipient. Mr. Robert Levy, Montgomery College Board of Trustees. Mr. Robert Hydorn, Montgomery College Board of Trustees. Dr. Frida Lacey, Montgomery College Board of Trustees. Dr. Sanjay Rai, Senior Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs. Ms. Jane Smith, President of the Montgomery College Alumni Association. Ms. Sheila Johnson, honorary degree recipient and our keynote speaker this morning. The Honorable Michael Knapp, Chair, Montgomery College Board of Trustees. the president of Montgomery College, Dr. Darian Pollard. Audience, please rise and remain standing for the presentation of the colors and the national anthem sung by Montgomery College student from the Department of Performing Arts, Mr. Alexis Amagwa.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. Montgomery College family, please welcome the president of Montgomery College, Dr. Darian Pollard.
Well, good morning and congratulations to the class of 2019. And most certainly, welcome and good morning to your guests as well, the friends and families of our graduates, our fabulous faculty, staff, and members of our foundation board, our alumni association, and other distinguished guests who are here today. Please let me join me in recognizing a few people who I want to specifically call out. The Honorable Pamela Queen, Maryland House of Delegates. The Honorable Lily Chi, Maryland House of Delegates. The Honorable Shebra Evans, Montgomery County Board of Education. The Honorable Carla Silvestri, Montgomery County Board of Education. Dr. Hercules Pinckney, President Emeritus. And to our phenomenal members of our Montgomery College Foundation, our PIC-MC Foundation, and the Montgomery College Alumni Association, and our former honorary degree recipients, please stand to be recognized as well. Because of the support of the Montgomery College Board of Trustees, the Foundation Board, and the PIC-MC Foundation, alumni, donors, and other elected officials, the college is able to achieve its mission of empowering students to change their lives. Thank you for joining us today for this memorable occasion. Now, I'm pleased to see so many graduates who are here today and their families who chose to celebrate this moment with you. Graduates, you all are simply beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. What a rich array of faces among the graduates and their families. I know a few students who are with us today are the first in their family to go to college, and many of those families who have sacrificed so much for them to be here have joined them. So I think graduates, you need to recognize your family and friends and supporters who are here today. Give them a clap. Now, I admit, I don't know all 1,059 of you who are walking across the stage today. But let me tell you a few things about a few of the students that I do know something about. I know several students like Michael Gibson, who is completing a 4-year apprenticeship program as an HVAC technician. At 36 years old, he is graduating with a 3.9 GPA and working full-time. But here's what I really love. He came back to school in part, he said, to show his 2 children how much they can achieve. That's the legacy of education. I know that some graduates today who didn't grow up in the U.S., like Wendy Mejia Aguilar, who came from El Salvador 5 years ago, graduated from Kennedy High School. She is an ACES student and has won a full scholarship to complete her bachelor's degree. I know Shayar Shagatashbi, who is an Iranian refugee who is graduating with an associate's degree in computer science. I know Taijis Mahinda, who is originally from Ethiopia and started taking classes through our workforce development and continuing education classes so that she could run her own childcare business. She is graduating today with her associate's degree and posted her 3.75 GPA on her refrigerator so that her 3 children would know what she expected of them. She told them, quote, "You need to beat this GPA because English is not my native language and it's yours." I know that we have many students here today who grew up right here in Montgomery County and saw something exceptional in Montgomery College, be it a STEM program or an honors program or a humanities course of study. And they took advantage of the educational excellence in their own backyard. In fact, we have 14 students who are graduating today with their high school diploma and their associate's degree at the same time. That's what I call ambition. These stories may seem very different, but they all share two common elements: persistence and courage. From my own experience, I know that going to college provokes a great amount of fear for me. Like many of today's graduates, I was the first in my family to complete a college degree, so I was quite intimidated by academics. I was worried about the cost, and I was anxious about balancing job responsibilities and my studies. I had to convince my father to apply for financial aid, which he didn't understand and didn't trust. For some of today's graduates, they were also taking care of families or struggling with immigration status or even learning English as a second, third, or fourth language. All of these are real challenges that would have stopped many students. Instead, each of our graduates today chose to face your fear. You quieted that siren song that says, "Maybe this is too hard." You turned away those voices, and sometimes in your own head you had to silence them, and you said instead, "Maybe I'm not good enough to be in college." On a day like today, it is easy to wave the victory flag and say, fear has been conquered. It can seem so black and white, but if we're very honest about our journeys, there's probably a lot of gray in that. Each of you had to choose to wrestle with your fear. Instead of dwelling on your own doubts, you asked for help. Instead of focusing on the risk, you invested in the possibilities. You looked for solutions, for support, for people, for hope. You had to step out every day when you weren't sure that there was a net below you to catch you. What you should have learned from this is that these decisions changed who you are. Doers are people who feel fear but push through it. At their best, they use fear to their advantage, to plan intentionally, to envision a better future, and to look for friends and allies. These are productive and useful outcomes of fear. If you took away any of those steps to get through your journey, the courage that you have shown today to be here and the grit that you have practiced to be in this very spot is a real story of your accomplishment today. Although you may not realize it, you are now poised to be leaders. This doesn't mean that you have to run for elected office, but as our former county executive, Ike Leggett, recently said to me, you can now be a voice for hope. You can now be someone who rejects fear when you bear it and hear it in your own mind, or in the voices around you in the workplace, or in your neighborhood, or in political rhetoric. Many of you probably came here just to earn a degree or certificate, but your journeys, both intellectual and personal, have transformed you in ways that go far beyond this space and place. Let me tell you why this matters. If you've been paying attention at all, you've noticed that fear has gained a foothold in our nation's political psyche. Some leaders today revel in telling us how dire the conditions are in our nation. They sometimes make up crises in order to enhance insecurity. Then once fear is fully inflamed, then they tell us who we ought to blame for it. It's no surprise that they tend to blame people who don't look like them, who speak other languages, or who were born in other countries, who have some difference about them. Mr. Ike Leggett, who spent decades building a diverse county that is welcoming of all, recently made a comment that has been powerful for me, and I think about it almost every day as I think about this work that we do. He said, quote, "Fear allows people to be manipulated. Fear can lead us to do something we otherwise would not do. Instead of being fearful, we should be hopeful." On a day that is so full of promise and hope, I want you to carry that perspective into your next chapter. You are already the embodiment of courage. Your very presence here today means that you have embraced your next chapter. Now I challenge you to take that one step further. Call out fear when you see it being used to divide people or to limit opportunity. Refuse to be hobbled by sentiments and narrow vision. Use your accomplishments and your experiences as lights that drive out fear in others. When I look around this audience today, I see the antithesis of fear. I see students who have learned to cultivate diversity, not breed suspicion around difference. I see faculty who model compassion and character. I see staff members who practice inclusion and integrity. I see families in this audience who understand the opportunity that is profoundly found in collaborative effort. They know that supporting one member who is taking courageous steps toward their future benefits us all. And I see a community in Montgomery County that rejects the fear that drives discrimination and instead models acceptance and aspiration. As Mr. Leggett said recently, true leaders will use hope to bring people together. Not only are you graduates of Montgomery College today, you are true leaders, and you cannot help but become hope for all of us. We need you to be that hope for all of us. Class of 2019, congratulations. Now here comes my favorite time in the exercises here today, so that we can all appreciate just some of the talent and diversity that make up this graduating class. I'm going to introduce you in a unique way. Actually, you're going to introduce yourselves. Graduates, this is your final exam. When I describe a group that you belong to, please stand up and shout, "I am MC." You got that? Okay. Pay close attention because you might have to get up more than once. And I'm going to add one in. One of our faculty members caught me on the way in. If you are celebrating the month of Ramadan while you were taking finals, while you were teaching, while you were working, stand up and say, "I am MC." If you graduated from a Montgomery County high school, stand up and shout, "I am MC." If you are a Maryland native, stand up and shout, "I am MC." If you were born in another country, stand up and say, "I am MC." If you have worked while attending MC, stand up and shout, I am MC. If you are the first in your family to attend college, stand up and say, I am MC. If you speak more than one language, stand up and say, I am MC. If you speak more than 3 languages, stand up and say, I am MC. If you are an MC employee or the relative of an MC employee, stand up and say, I am MC. If you're graduating Phi Theta Kappa, stand up and shout, I am MC. If you attended more than one MC campus, stand up and shout, I am MC. If you came to college to find a new career, stand up and say, I am MC. If you participated in one of our many learning communities, such as ACES, the Macklin Business Institute, the Hillman Entrepreneurs Program, the Honors Scholars, or the Renaissance or Montgomery Scholars Programs, stand up and say, I am MC. If you are receiving more than one degree or certificate today, stand up and say, I am MC. If you plan to transfer, stand up and say, I am MC. If you are earning a high school diploma and a college degree today, stand up and say, I am MC. If you plan to enter the workforce after graduation today, stand up and say, I am MC. If you are under the age of 25, stand up and say, I am MC. If you have children, stand up and say, I am MC. If you are a single parent doing this work, stand up and say, I am MC. If you are over 60 and graduating today, stand up and say, I am MC. If you are a military veteran, service member, or working reservist, stand up and say, I am MC. If you have a GPA of 4.0, stand up and say, I am MC. Last but not least, if you are a member of the graduating class of 2019, stand up and say, I am MC. Montgomery County, I am proud to introduce to you our future. Let's give these students a round of applause, everyone.
This is a great day, and we now get to recognize 4 outstanding scholars. The Board of Trustees Scholar Awards recognize valedictorians from each of our campuses in workforce development and continuing education. Today's scholars will receive a board citation and a tuition scholarship. I call your attention to the video screen to learn more about these 4 outstanding students.
I grew up in Wheaton, Maryland, graduated from Our Lady of Good Counsel High School. After high school, I attended Montgomery College, but dropped out. At 19, I started as a janitor at Magruder High School. I was there for 2 years, and I wanted to move up in the county, so I applied for a maintenance position in heavy equipment, which involved machinery and doing concrete work and things like that. After that, I decided I wanted to move on from that, and I went into the auto shop, and I worked there for 4 years. In the meantime, I applied for the apprenticeship program 2 different times, and I wasn't accepted. The third time, I finally was accepted. I was nervous because, honestly, I haven't done well in school. My sophomore year of high school, I was diagnosed with ADD, and before that, I was a C/D student, occasional B. After I was diagnosed, I started doing better in school, but still didn't enjoy it, didn't like the classroom. So coming back to it, I was real nervous about it, but I just told myself to buckle down and get it done, and it worked. I'd love to thank my wife and kids who I think they've sacrificed maybe more than what I've sacrificed. My mom has always been real supportive, my dad. I'd like to thank my supervisors in Montgomery County who've mentored me through this program, and the technicians who have helped me along. I'd like to thank the Board of Trustees for giving me this award and this honor.
I am originally from the Ivory Coast of Côte d'Ivoire. I came to the US in Montgomery College 2 years ago, right after high school. I am not a native English speaker, so I took ESL classes to learn more English. Then I gained a lot of confidence. I also gained a lot of confidence by volunteering and also being part of clubs and of the governance, the student council. Coming to MC and to the US as an international student was very overwhelming at first because I was alone and I needed to learn more about myself. Fortunately, I have my sister and my uncle here. They have been a great resource. My sister, for 5 years, she went to MC, and now she's an accountant. And my uncle also went to MC, and now he's a scientist. Since I was a kid, I've always wanted to be a neurosurgeon, so I knew that I wanted to go to med school. And coming here, I got great counselors who told me to start with biological sciences. After Montgomery College, I am transferring to a 4-year school. I also want to do a MD PhD, and after being a neurosurgeon, I want to have a chain of hospitals around the world. I would like to thank my sister. She's a great example to me, and she has been very supportive and very helpful in everything. Also my uncle, who is just adorable and always supporting me. My aunt and everyone in my family has been so supportive of me and my project and always guiding me.
I was born and raised in Iran. I came to the United States in mid-2015 because in my country I couldn't achieve my goal and fulfill my dreams, so I decided to move to the United States. Leaving my family, my parents, and my hometown and coming here, it was very hard at the beginning and frustrating at first. The first one that started Montgomery College was my older uncle who came here 35 years ago. And then after that, my uncle, the other uncle, and my aunt, they both started Montgomery College 18 years ago. And they all had a great experience here. I just followed their path, and I came to Montgomery College. When I started here, they were very welcoming and friendly because my English was broken. It was very hard for me to communicate with people. And when I started my classes, no one judged me that my language is bad. All my classmates, they were very helpful. They helped me to go through it together. They pushed me more. Even they were my classmates and also my English teacher as well. So first, I have to thank my parents that they did that sacrifice for me to be here without being with them. And the more important thing, I want to say thank you to Ati and Ali. They were my aunt and uncle who supported me throughout this journey. And I want to say thank you to my older uncle, Rasul, who support all of us to be here because he was the first one coming here. So I'm very appreciate that their helps and all their sacrifice that they did. I really want to be in the dental field, and I am joining the University of Maryland, Baltimore, the dental school for the dental hygiene program because I really like to educate and tell people about the importance of oral health. In other words, I want to give the people the confidence to smile and give them the brighter smiles.
When I entered MC, it had been approximately 9 years since I'd graduated high school and 3 years since I'd taken a college course. And I really hadn't found my stride until I entered the community here at Montgomery College. Montgomery College was immediately welcoming. I felt like I was part of a larger community, a Montgomery family, if you will, and that here was where I belonged. I always knew that I wanted a degree, but my time at Montgomery College really helped focus that desire into a degree in the biological sciences, which I hope to pursue towards a medical career where I could give back to the community. So in addition to studying at Montgomery College and working part-time, I was also training for the Marine Corps Marathon. There were many times at which I thought that I was ready to throw in the towel, and fortunately, with the support of my family and my fiancée Lauren, I received the encouragement I needed to run those 26.2 miles and to become the first person with dwarfism to complete the Marine Corps Marathon. I'd like to thank my fiancée Lauren. She has stood by me through this entire process and been a beacon of support. I'd like to also thank my fiancée's parents, Susan and Wayne. You both have been pillars of support on the East Coast that I could not do without. I'd also like to thank my parents, who can't be here today, but who have always believed in me. They have never faltered from being behind me 100%. Montgomery College is a place of new beginnings, that here you are provided with the tools where you can create your future and you're not limited by where you came from.
These are just 4 of the amazing and impressive stories of our students, and they are terrific representatives of this 2019 graduating class. Trustee Brentnall, please bring forward Michael Philip Gibson. Trustee Hydorn. Trustee Hydorn, please bring forward Ms. Marie-Alexandre Adam. Trustee Levy, please bring forward Ms. Shamim Azad. And Trustee Hydorn, please bring forward Mr. Benjamin Bromley-Coolidge. Congratulations, scholars. We know you will continue to make Montgomery College proud with your future endeavors.
It is a tradition at colleges and universities to award honorary degrees to individuals who have risen to a position of eminence, have acquired a national or international reputation in a field, or hold a distinguished record of public and community service, or have made notable donation of time, talent, or treasure to Montgomery College. Today, we honor 5 individuals.
Trustee Aparicio Blackwell, please bring forward Ms. Mindi Jacobson, visionary community leader, distinguished citizen, advocate for higher education, and faithful friend of Montgomery College. Trustee Levine, please bring forward Mrs. Catherine Leggett, distinguished businesswoman, visionary, community leader, benevolent benefactor, and faithful friend of Montgomery College, and the Honorable Isiah Leggett, visionary leader of our county, benevolent benefactor, advocate for higher education, and faithful friend of Montgomery College. Trustee Hoffman, please bring forward Mr. Elias Woldu, a distinguished businessman, dedicated community activist, and faithful friend of Montgomery College. Ms. Johnson, please join me at the podium. Ms. Sheila Johnson is a visionary business leader, caring philanthropist, distinguished community citizen, and faithful friend of Montgomery College. Chairmanship to you.
Chair Knapp, by the power vested in me by the Board of Trustees in the state of Maryland, I confer these honorary associate's degree in public service to Ms. Mindi Jacobson, the Honorable Isiah Leggett, Mrs. Catherine Leggett, Mr. Elias Woldu, and Ms. Sheila Johnson, who with diligence and honor have served Montgomery College, our community, and the great state of Maryland.
On behalf of the Board of Trustees, the President, the faculty, and the staff of Montgomery College, it is with gratitude and pleasure that I award these degrees with all rights and privileges appertaining thereunto. Congratulations to each of you. Now, please join me in welcoming our commencement speaker, Ms. Sheila Johnson.
Well, what a day this is. I have to say, it is truly an honor to look out at the sea of faces. This is an amazing day, and I would really like to thank our college president, Darian Pollack, for this opportunity. Today, I am standing on the stage as a woman, an African-American woman in my third act of life. My first act, I was actually a teacher, a violin teacher, author, and decorated musician. In my second act, I was co-founder of Black Entertainment Television, which was sold to Viacom in 2002. I was going to say 2012. Those first two acts were the stairway that helped me become the person I am now in my third act in life. The lessons I learned from the first two acts have given me the foundation for who I am today. I am a woman who has rediscovered who she is, has embraced her strengths and weaknesses, has been emboldened, empowered, and not afraid of failure. I feel alive. The struggles, the heartbreaks, and betrayals were my greatest gifts because through prayer I have found peace and happiness. In other words, I know who I am. I am a woman who is willing to take risks and challenge the world both in business and in politics. Yes, I grew up in humble beginnings, just outside of Chicago. Believe it or not, my father was one of 11 African-American neurosurgeons in the country way back when. And he was not allowed to practice in white hospitals. He had to practice out of the VA hospitals, and we moved every 10 months because he could only operate on African-American patients. Through all of that, he taught me strength, fortitude, and never to give up on my dreams. The lessons I want to teach and talk to you about today cannot be found in a textbook, but they come from my heart, the struggles in which I have been through. In life, there are two worlds. There's the world outside, the world we can see, the world we can touch, and the world we can hear. It's the world we read about in the papers and the world we're confronted with every time we turn on the television, drive around the corner, or look out into the street. But there's another world too, and it's a far more important one. It's the world that dwells inside of us. It's the world that includes our heart, our soul, our hopes, our fears, and our dreams, along with the one thing that ultimately controls them all, our mind. Because once you take control of the world within, the world outside of you becomes your oyster. It becomes a blank canvas upon which you can paint anything, from a simple finger painting to the Mona Lisa. What's more, the only way you can change the outside world is by changing the world inside of you. And how do you do that? It's to take control of your mind. Nurture your mind. Feed it. Challenge it. expand it, and ultimately master it. It's rarely exciting, and it's a dull and tedious exercise, but you must do it. And when you learn to control your mind and learn to discipline yourself to do the things your mind and conscience tell you to do, you can gain mastery over everything else, other than, of course, what God has in store for you. And as a young student, yes, I studied hard. I practiced my violin incessantly. Often long after my parents went to bed, I would always go downstairs and practice in the kitchen as not to wake them. Summers I worked at JCPenney and at the Rayovac Corporation because I didn't really want to be a financial burden on my family. But fast forward, after teaching the violin and selling BET, my real journey began. I took the proceeds from the sale and bought a beautiful farm in the rolling hills of Virginia. I retreated to ponder my next step in life. I had to rediscover who I was because I really did lose my way and get my passion back. And what could motivate me to find the light in my soul? That's where and when I fell in love with the little town of Middleburg, the town that is sat in the heart of Virginia countryside. That's also where I went and conceived the idea of building a resort and spa that would be both celebrate wellness and enhance Middleburg and its centuries-old horse culture. The problem was, I couldn't just write a check or snap my fingers to make it happen. I had to work to make it so, one step at a time. And this despite more than my share of local resistance. You see, at the time, Middleburg, for all its warmth, beauty, and hospitality, had become trapped in its own sense of self and its deep-rooted commitment to its own version of history. The town did not realize it could be more diverse, it could be more culturally and socially compelling, as well as possess a broader tax base and a more updated and efficient physical infrastructure. So here is my second lesson. It is the story of the salamander. People ask me, where did the salamander name come from? Now, I love to tell stories, and more importantly, true stories. So I will back up a little bit. Yes, I bought a farm in Virginia. The farm that I looked at belonged to a man by the name of Bill Ildesacker. He did not want me to take the name of the farm, and I was told that it's bad luck if you change the name of a farm. So he moved, took his name, and I went to the former owner. His name was Bruce Sunland. I said, what was the name of your farm? And you had it. He said, Salamander. I said, can I have that name? He said, yes. He says, but there's this big story behind this name. And I said, well, what is it? Bruce Sunland was a fighter pilot during World War II. He was shot down over Nazi-occupied Belgium. The plane went down, there was only one casualty. The rest of his unit was captured in a POW camp. He was able to escape, and he went across Europe on a bicycle with a very small license plate, but that's how the Nazis could really track who was escaping and where they were going. He ended up in Allied territory of France. Now, the US found out that's where he was. And they came to him and they said, we understand your unit has been captured, and they're in a POW camp not far away. And he said, yes. He says, but they said, I'm gonna give you the code name Salamander. And he said, why Salamander? They said, mythically, the salamander is the only animal that could walk through fire and still come out alive. He said, okay, we'll do that. But do you know, realistically, if you chop off the limbs of the salamander, they grow back. So there is really a TV show that was built behind this, and us older people know the show is called Hogan's Heroes. And that is the story of Bruce Sunland. So I asked him if I could have that name and brand it. And he said, by all means. because what I was going through in that point in my life, I wanted to be the Salamander. So by embracing Bruce Sunland's story and the story of the Salamander, I learned to never quit, despite of all the hurdles and all the naysaying. And once before I stopped hoping and fighting for what I knew what was right. In other words, the Salamander is about perseverance, courage, and fortitude. And to this day, the employees of Salamander recite that every single morning at lineup. Now, backtrack over the course of the past 10 years, for all those times when I was trying to build the resort, I laid my head on the pillow at night and felt completely beaten up and ready to quit because people were coming after me. There were people in Virginia that thought the Civil War still wasn't over. I reached deep in inside myself, and I knew my faith, and in my faith, I had to dig down and really find the strength and the boldness to continue my mission to build the resort. I went to dozens of town board meetings and walked into countless public officials' offices to plead my case, share my vision for Middleburg, and listen to one objection after another. Then, as a gesture of good faith and to show my commitment to the project, I had to build an entirely new multi-million-dollar public water system for the town. I bought a small gun shop because every time I came in that town, I was confronted with the Confederate flag, and it was a gun shop. So I bought it, and I tore down that flag. And it is now a wonderful, genuine, high-quality food market. And those doors swing open and they welcome people of all creeds, colors, and persuasions. I recruited and brought to this beautiful small town some of the finest hospitality and food service experts I could find anywhere in the country. So good for you. Now, since the opening in 2013, Salamander Resort and Spa became the top honor in hospitality, the Forbes 5-Star Award. Now, there were only 2 hotels in the United States this year that were awarded that. That was my hotel and the Four Seasons in Lanai. So the first woman and first African American to get this award. And now the company has grown to 6 hotels. It is the home of any number of important annual events, not the least of which the prestigious Middleburg Film Festival is now moving into its 7th year. And I started that film festival to bring people to Middleburg and to see what we were able to accomplish. It has now been dubbed the number 6 most important film festival in our country and is now called the Road to the Oscars. So Salamander Resort and Spa employs what may be culturally the richest and most ethnically diverse staff in the entire county. And it remains the pride of and joy of countless longtime residents of Middleburg, many of whom were among those who told me it will never happen. And I tell you that story to illustrate 2 of the 3 points I truly hope you'll take home with you today. I was able to triumph and finish my resort. I was tenacious in my belief that this resort would strengthen the town economically. I look out at the sea of faces before me today, faces of all ages, colors, and genders. And I don't just see Montgomery College class of 2019. I see something much, much more. I see leaders and team members, doers and dreamers, movers and shakers, And here is my third piece of advice. Never lose sight of who you are. I want you to own your space. You are the people who will not only lead the economic and social revolution taking place in this country, but who will support those leaders and help them turn their visions into reality. In short, I see the very face of America because you represent the country's best chance at reclaiming our past glory and indeed becoming greater as a nation than we've ever been before. I want you. I want people who continue to take nothing for granted because they've been given nothing. People who've learned the hard way that every day is a gift, and every gift, especially life itself, is precious. Graduates of Montgomery College, class of 2019, I cannot say this enough. You are my heroes because you are our future. You are the finest our country has to offer, its hopes, its dreams, and promise all rolled into one. And all you have to do is to continue the three things I detailed for you today. 1, learn to harness the power of your mind. It is and will always be the key to whatever the future may hold. 2, be the salamander. Be tenacious. Never give up on your dreams and shut out those outside voices who try to suppress you. I call them energetic vampires. They will destroy and delay your career journey. And last but not least, never lose sight of all that life has taught you up to now. Never drift from it, because that knowledge has made you who you are, and it has given you the powers that are now untapped and waiting to be unleashed upon the world. The combination of those three things, being strong-willed, being tenacious, and always keeping your feet on the ground, will allow you to compete with anyone, anywhere, anytime. Now go out there and change the world, be bold, be independent, be socially responsible, and be culturally influential. And in the process, show them exactly who you are and where you came from. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson, for those comments. I love that idea of remembering who you are and at the same time using it to change the world. That's a potent message. Thank you so much for that. Thank you again for choosing to be here today, and we're so grateful that you spent time with our graduates, imparting with them some important lessons about life. Thank you again.
Good morning. Good morning. Wonderful. As the Senior Vice President of Academic Affairs, it gives me great pride to honor two individuals whose contributions to our students has earned them a very special place in Montgomery College's history. Would Trustee Brentnell please bring forward the recipient of 2019 Full-Time Faculty of the Year Award, Professor Tyra Pinard. Would Trustee Lacey please bring forward the winner of 2019 Part-Time Faculty of the Year Award, Professor Albert Kapkian. Let's give our outstanding faculty a huge round of applause. And all our fabulous faculty and staff, students, let's show them how much we appreciate them. This is the part of our celebrations that all of our guests have been dreaming for a lifetime, the presentation of our graduates. Guests, I know I'm asking a great deal of you, but please hold your applause so everyone can hear their graduate's name called. Also, please remain in your seats. As you can see, we have a professional photographer on hand, and every graduate will receive a complimentary photo. Again, this year, the Montgomery College Foundation will award 4 $1,000 transfer scholarships. Graduates, to be eligible, you must remain in your seats until the end of the ceremony. Graduates, please rise. Dr. Pollard, I am pleased to present to you the graduates of class 2019.
Chair Knapp, I am pleased to announce that as certified by the College Registrar, the faculty has conferred the degree of Associate of Applied Science, Associate of Arts, Associate of Arts in Teaching, Associate of Fine Arts, Associate of Science, a certificate, or a letter of recognition as appropriate on these persons of the class of 2019 who have, with diligence and honor, fulfilled the requirements for the degree or certificate being awarded with all the rights and privileges appertaining thereunto.
I am pleased to announce that by the authority vested in the Board of Trustees of the College by the State of Maryland, the Board of Trustees has ratified the faculty's conferral upon those students of the Associate's Degree Certificate, the certificate or the letter of recognition as appropriate, with all the rights and privileges appertaining thereunto. Congratulations.
Irowu O. Abaku.
Gilles Rodolphe Abe Fueze.
Patrick Armand Lacac. Ida Lauren Abijoma. Linda Lakmago Kine.
Heaven Abraha with honors.
Daniel T. Abebe. Sandy Alyssa Laclet.
Jonas Samre Abraha, honors.
Anna Gabrielle Yameas Pinto Homem.
Dylan Robert Landis with honors.
Fojan Salamani Abiane. James Edward Lang III.
Melina Andrea Acuna Lopez.
Jean Charity Lanier.
Michael Giorgio Lanza with honors.
Chriselle Christiana Adams. Sandra Acosta.
Cadis Antine Adunya.
Christy May Larson. Alexis Nicole Lawton. Oluwaranti Agbe Davies.
Leonardo Alejandro Lazarte.
Roberto Carlos Aguilar.
Anthony Vincent Lee.
Diana Aguilar Portela. Eric Leighton Le. Hien Le. Sarah Ahmad. Nancy Mylin Lee.
Edu Leslie Adu.
Tan Lei.
Dean Leacock. Rita Elise Renee Acadia.
Brent Taylor Leckie Jr.
Chelsea Okoro.
Isaac Lee. Jennifer Elizabeth Lee.
Linda Harry Okoro. Monica Maritza Leva. Alex Neri Albanez. Michelle Leturia.
Deidrin
Fatou
Lewis.
Juf Albert. Rong Lee. Jenny
Wilkin
Liang.
Alcantara.
Yu Chung Liang. Birhanu W. Alemu. Carol Ying Liu. Amanda Jane Livingston. Nita K. Alexander Roth. Odalis Yarena. Lauren Ashley Abigail Allard. Viviana Jontap Maldonado.
Ramika
Chi
Allen.
Lo.
James Benedict Longogan.
Mohammed Abdullah Al-Sarar. Aline Christina Mayring Lopez.
Cindy Alvarado.
Andrew Jesus Lopez.
Elijah Winston Alvarado.
Giovanni Roberto Lopez,
Jose
Kimberly
Alvarado.
Lopez, Ana Jocelyn Alvarez, Martin G. Lopez, Angie Elizabeth Alvarez, Kevin David Jr. Lapoy,
Giselle Jocelyn Alvarez.
Wilma Veronica Francis Luke, Santiago Jose Luli,
Nancy Alvarez.
Alexander Michael Lutz,
Richard David Alvarez.
Julia Lutsenko,
Deborah Liani Mambanda,
Victor M. Alvarez,
Candy Machalahia Jusia,
Jimmy Alvear Pozo,
Sandali Madwala,
Miguel Alves,
Carolina Moffett,
Yoslin Amaya Hernandez,
Elena Maharan with honors,
Guido Ambas,
Bruno Ricardo Maita Davila,
Tom Anderson, Ingrid Beatriz Argueta,
Joyce Nianchera Makori,
Mark Angelich,
Turan Malhorita,
Nihad
Malua
Onuko.
Wadu,
Ann Prabha Wadu,
Benton Chase Anthony,
Babila Johnny Maman,
Ricardo Antron,
Ephraim Getachew Mamo,
Damaris Anyam Amek,
Joanna Ayakor Mante,
Lydia Apia,
Paola Michelle Mantilla,
I'll take it. What's
Arauz. Carlos Darwin Arauz.
Jose Samuel Manzano Perez,
Serena Ardizoya,
Lillian Maku Aro,
Rifa Ariella,
Nicholas Justo Marasigan,
Erica
Madison
Marcantonio,
Isabella Armonda,
Amy Reese Marson,
Luciane Arroyo Salgado,
Charlotte Jane L. Marinas with honors,
Afia Asamoah,
Javier Philip Marius, Aisha Marsono,
Kidis Aswa.
Paige Martello, Kareem Martin,
Namra Batul Ashraf.
Daniel Esteban Martinez,
Phaedra Asgarinam,
Erlinda Martinez,
Jennifer Marie Martinez,
Awai Cecilia Ifete Atache.
Samantha Mireya Martinez,
Alexandra Rose Atienza,
Sarah Nicole Martinez,
Sheludu El Masabes,
Gilma Vanessa Avalos,
Dikla Mashia,
Stephanie S. Avalos,
Paula Eva Makuju Matem,
Julia del Carmen Avila Zavala,
Jaylyn Mayo,
Shanaz Awan,
June Gabriel Mayo,
Malat
Daniel
Lucera Awel,
Evelyn Mays,
Carl Awori Makango,
Are Mantumbe,
Tigist Ayalu,
Jeffrey
Sheree
Ayemo,
McCoy,
Mariah Christine McCullough, with
Jennifer
honors.
Ava Ajabu,
Rebecca Jean McDowell,
Musa Ba,
Lanisa Janae McFadden,
Paula Francesca Bakigolupo,
Brendan John McGovern,
it won't. Yoon Soo Bae,
Sario O'Shane McIntosh, Anna K. Kimberly
Thomas
McLean,
Baker,
Jennifer Kate McMahon,
Jake N. Baloi,
Precious Joy McPherson,
Giselle Ganise Bamanji,
Gwendolyn Princess McRae Phillips, Thomas Meads,
Carlos Vicente Baptista,
Digna Maciel Medina,
Christopher Felix Barba,
Jennifer Odalis Medina,
Raquel Jasmine Barillas,
Fabiola Medina Gill,
Giselle Ruby Barreto Estrella,
Ivor E. Medina,
Andrea Anith Madeleine Barrios Acare,
Wendy Mejia,
Zakaria Jafar Basale, Manuel Bascolo,
Gabriel Alejandro Melgar,
Tomas Bascolo, Latifa Shabani Bashanga, Joel D. Bassingwen,
Milat Sisai Mendisu,
Dana Basiri Tarani,
Tigist Fikede Mengesha,
John Paul Basoluca,
Martina Ohiniwa Mensa,
Rochelle Bastian,
Jennifer Marino,
Jessica Basurdo,
Jennifer Ruby Marino,
Maisa Bint Charles Bateman,
Lisa Nantumbli Manfu, with honors.
Marissa Ann Bateman,
Jamila Michael,
Amanda Brianna Battle,
Million Midexa,
Subuya Charlotte Bayala,
Kaylin Margaret Milby,
Masa Bayati,
Lenny Eddie Milton Cole,
Jasmine Janae Bellard.
Vasika E. Manesa with honors.
Natalia Belos.
Paul R. Minert.
Andrew Kenneth Beltran.
Samina Mistrolofi.
Melissa Malvelli Benitez.
Sequoia Keisha Mitchell.
Simone Wanjuru Mitchum.
Mohammed Anas Benzari.
Amina Mohammed Mohammed.
Babina Akum Manjang.
Jessica Mariah Best.
Emmanuel Kirk Moore.
Danica Bethia.
Julia Edith Montone with honors.
Adam Etayabi Butler.
Catherine Heath Moore.
Tierra
Rasheen
Simone
Bay.
Moore.
Reddy April Bayan.
Lodan Maradlu.
Manuel Vicente Besa Bertran.
Adriana Maricela Morales.
Manije Bidhindi.
Christopher Moran. Natalie Moran.
Ana Maria Bescora.
Renzo Alessandro Moran.
Kelly Elizabeth Blackledge.
Clancy Andrea Moreno. Jairo M. Moreno.
Terrence Lacey Blackwell.
Lizora Maria Moreta Sabino. Sue-Ann Catherine Morris.
Lulu Blake.
Janaea Dior Morrow.
Eric Blanco.
Leandra Audrey Darina Mukudi Undoko.
Carla A. Blanco.
Yvette Mawa Mpia.
Roberto Blanco.
Amanal Nemir Abel Al Matesa.
Marissa Eve Bachner.
Irene N. Makuhi. Kelly Acho Mukum.
Daria Bogatireva.
Patty Mukibi Mukwaba.
Omar Bori.
Catalina Munoz.
Josiane Nyamoloba Boketsu.
Lynn Shazine Murray.
Alec
Aubrey
Alston.
Kent Booth.
Alec Alston Machino with honors.
Anna Bovari.
And Marwan Mustafa.
Sharina Renee Boyd.
Louis Mwambo.
Millicent Brafo.
Harold Jonathan Najaro Ceresi.
Isaiah Hassan Brasil.
Regina Namanda.
Mark John Henri Briancon.
Doris Namiro.
Iris Johanna Briseno.
Brino Napoli Fernandez with honors.
Joel Robert Brown.
Elias Namensto Diaz with honors.
Mauricia Brown.
Ian Matthew Nathan.
Moses Keniston Brown.
Vanessa Mireya Navarrete. Bijan
Kevin
Kern
Brown
Nadat.
Jr.
Naham Dagnu Nagash.
Akueba Sasimi Bruce.
Madlanai Nell.
Catherine Aaron Brustad.
Jordani Nelson.
Courtney Michelle Budd.
Kayla Michelle Newby.
Stephanie Samantha Butrago.
Ethan Chandler Newman.
Corinne Bonet.
Willow Bay Newman. Kirsten Newtoff and Schuyler with honors.
Sophia Anna Burgess.
Athena Generoso Carzone with honors.
Terrell Lamont Burney.
Yorick Ngambi Ngambi.
Matthew Jonathan Burrows.
Hai Duke Nguyen.
Ryan Thomas Butt with honors.
Kyla Katria Ne.
Faustina Maria Cabrera.
James Nyampira with honors. Miguel Nyampira with honors.
Denny Stephen Caceres.
Thomas Nicola. Nima Nick Farjam.
Brian Salvador Calderon.
Phelanda Rudolph Njoya.
Kayla Ann Calvin.
Jolinette Nkamju.
Ignacio Candia Rodriguez.
Chancelin Unking Beza.
Celeste Irupe Cañete.
Jiho No. Jasmine Nong.
Anjanae Nicole Cannon with honors.
Klishad Sophie Nubueke.
Nicholas Anthony Caponiti.
Marlise Chana Newman.
Juan Alejandro Capuro.
Lyle Ntubu.
Celestin Pierre Stephan Nantone.
Elizabeth Capuzzo Peso.
Camila Ojong Untui Iba.
Esvin Cardona.
Christopher Nugent.
James Carew.
Abel Niakundi Niareru.
Jennifer Brooke Carrier.
Larissa Nantyonka.
Richard J. Carrion.
Jasmine Tatiana Obas.
Blanca Cassione Cohen with honors.
Antonella Ocano La Rosa.
Alexis Castillo.
Francisco Sebastian Osha.
Andy Castillo.
Ozeza Lizo Odaro.
Brandon Osvaldo Castillo.
Josephine Odubiyi.
Jana Christina Katuje.
Charles Warren Ogburn, Jr.
Masango Agora.
Amy Howard Seltniks.
Beverly Claire Adiabo Akugwu with honors.
Karen Serrato Hernandez.
Alvaro Olarte.
Jasmine Guadalupe Cervantes.
Jamie Oliveras Alberti with honors.
Gianluca Citraro.
Catherine Olivero.
Kiana Janae Chambers.
Halan Tringa Oluhu.
Stephen Chan.
Justine Nicole Olson.
Molly Chang.
Nasir Ongum with honors.
Shuai Chang.
Phyo Tan U.
Anthony Charles.
Miguel Alejandro Ordonez.
Jeremiah Charles.
Javel Milanes Orio.
Diego Esu Ortega with honors.
Thurman Nathaniel Chapman.
Yvette Pamela Osorio.
Maria Luciano Costa with honors.
Jorge Chavez.
Maureen Osuju with honors.
Luz Chavez Gonzalez.
Sarah Pitam Olor with honors.
Kevin Chavez Lopez.
Graham William Ovington with honors.
Hui Lang Chen.
Miranda Piaz.
Audra Mona Tuning.
Ethel Ahon Pale.
Lydia Chilipamushi.
Daniel Pantoja.
Daryl Voafo Shiogo.
Ling Kien Pa.
Russell Chomnu.
Eber Alexis Parada Maldonado.
Roger Wilson Choque.
Efrain Paredes.
Julianne Y. Chow.
Khadija Imani Parnell.
Victor Alphonsus Christie.
Sandra Patambe with honors.
Sophia Gok Chung.
Marcus Cole Peavy with honors.
Charlotte Scarlett Claros.
Ruth Ayumikun Ogunsanwo.
Justin Benedict Coe.
Diego Pena.
James Richard Kaufman with honors.
Cristina Alejandra Pereira. Jose Mauricio Pereira.
Kimberly Ann Cole.
Ann Tharushi Pereira.
Walida
Jennifer
Cole
Liseth
with
Perez
honors.
Diaz.
Jennifer Lisette Perez Diaz with honors.
Fasine Conde. Margaret Estelle Connolly.
Edwin Perez James with honors.
Marie Conte.
Evangeline Maria Pergantes.
Yamilet Lorena Cortez.
Ana Esther Perez Mejia with honors.
Jaren Costa.
Stephanie Paz.
Cedric Raphael Paul.
Cecia Mariela Cotum.
Samantha Lauren Petros.
Sandra Patricia Cotton.
Thomas Taylor Phillips Wands.
Wachenin Alima Douglas Kalibabili.
Devin Phipps.
Caitlin
Javante
Marie
Laverne
Crosby.
Pimpleton.
Javante Laverne Pimpleton with honors.
Carolina Cruz.
Catherine Joanne Pineda.
George Cruz.
Francesca Weleska Pineda Alvarez.
Jacqueline Patricia Cruz.
Alejandro Ivan Plazas.
Nelson Cruz.
Mabel Sheila Porta Machiquay. Jaylyn Portis.
Vanessa Carolina Cruz.
Celia Isabel Portillo.
Jefferson Cruz Vargas.
Carla Portillo.
Natalie Sehi Kiro.
Carla Portillo Silva.
Raquel Lakeisha Curtis.
Jennifer Posada Grandos.
Kimberly Tatiana Kusmar.
Catherine Posadas.
Avery Matthew Joseph Debro.
Yao Hudalo Podima.
Gaurav Dali.
Fazla Fahim Prince. Cholada Pramnoy.
Antonia Delamita.
Andrew Nicholas Proshan.
Seifa Aragawi Belai.
Kenneth Paulo S. Peruna with honors.
Mariana Esperanza Camacho.
Emilce Vanessa Pugarita.
Courtney Elizabeth Daniels.
Nisa Pruti with honors.
Bayala Dansoko.
Alejandra del Carmen Querizada.
Allison Miriam Darkush.
Lindsay Quintanilla.
Tiffany Delphine Daviod Brooks.
Carlos Rene Quintanilla Cruz.
Niall Daniel Dawson.
Maria Elena Quintanilla Pascasio. Elizabeth Quinteros.
Mike Stewart de la Cruz Garcia.
Miluzmar Quispe.
Marianelli Audela de Leon.
Oscar Denis Quispe Escalante.
Anumu Dekpo.
Brenda Kiskine.
Leoncio Gustavo del Granado. Davina Elaine Dugganson. John de la Guardia.
Jack Scott Rada.
Mikyas Ayalu Dempsey.
Rukaya Rahim.
Behelu T. Denbel.
Elisana Johanna Raker.
Sabrina J. Denton with honors.
Brenda Yvette Ramirez.
Frederick Henry Di Fiore.
Helen Lucia Ramirez.
Sandiani Diaz.
Ron Vincent Yon Ramos.
Seido Diada.
Veronica Diana Ramos. Amara Ramzan.
Biram Dewai.
Fatima Larato Raposa.
Claudia Patricia Diaz.
Luis Recinos.
Aina Regimi.
Julie Araceli Diaz.
Chelsea Nicole Reed.
Marvin Diaz.
Christiane Daphne Elom Moncholi.
Carlos Diaz Franco with honors.
Elaine Reed with honors.
Daniela Diaz Medina.
Gareth Orain Reed. Nada Reyna.
Sani Lourdes Diaz Velos with honors.
Mirna Ratana.
Josiane Stephanie DiFuco.
Robert Anthony Reyes.
Isadora Do Carmo.
Larissa Tamara Richards.
Leana Dogbe.
Michael Andrew Daniel Richards with honors.
Natalie Virginia Richards Johnson.
Linda Stella Donfolk Fidiju.
Sharissa Erica Riddock.
Stella Afi Dochu.
Maximiliano Merced Rios.
Stella Blondele Di Canjo.
Oscar Josue Rivera.
Ranka Enzola Di Kenda.
Natalie Melissa Rivera Gomez. Marari
Daniel
Rivera
Gravier.
Villegas.
Daniel Gravier Dicum.
Naveen Youssef Rizkala.
Patrice B. Dalloway.
Alana Golete Rosales.
Freddie Donis.
Angie Rose Robbins.
Austin Iseas Duenas.
Vanessa Robles. Casey Alyssa Rocco Grandi.
Leah Duff.
Kyle Iro Pagarigan Rodrigo.
Hugo Rodriguez.
Piumi Manishika Rajapankash with honors.
Jimmy Rodriguez.
Catherine Jaline Rodriguez.
Eber Duran.
Are we switching?
Sarah Noemi Rodriguez.
Luke Durand Zara.
Oscar Rojas Zorita.
Demisha Samantha Dyer.
Andrew Roman,
Carolina Sophia Earp,
Deanna Romero,
Dakota James Eaton,
Eileen Sophia Romero,
Jana Christine Edmonds,
Wilbur Alexander Rosales,
Chinjiba Nawaoma Egezia,
Ife Nuolua Oluwetobiloba Rotimi,
Jennifer Elias,
Robert Knox Royster,
Shekina Imongo,
Nestor Ruano,
Merheina English,
Kellyanne Rubens,
Maizilsta Corsa Eninful,
Maria Isabel Ruiz,
Darius R. Enoch,
Matt Russell with honors,
Brian Toby Enweruzo,
Kelvin Christopher Sagastizado,
Edwin Irazo,
Alexander Besamor Sagna,
Bemnet Kabebe Erbedo,
Idman Abdul Qadir Saeed,
Elizabeth Aida Escobar,
Saida Saidian,
Jennifer Naomi Escalante Escobar,
Timur Saeed Hojayev,
Ashley Ambo Esibe,
Cassandra St. Jean,
Juan Alberto Espinosa Espinosa,
Jonathan St. Tilma,
Mariana Oliveira Esteves,
Olga Salamatos, Genesis Vargas Estevez, Alifa Tessa Salsabila,
Callie Nicole Etches,
Vanessa Salvatierra,
Paul Ola Etta, John Justice Sublime Evans,
Fernanda Sanchez,
Mike Edward Wilson Ewan Akambi,
Jorge Emilio Sanchez,
Jacob Aya II,
Laura Sanchez Bustamante,
Hiwat Wandimu Fanta, Maria Angelica Gajardo, Riley Lamont Barenthold,
Jose de Jesus Sanchez Garcia,
Gabriel Isaac Feliz,
Jesse Jose Sanchez Lopez,
Max Christian Feria,
Tyre Jeremy Sanders,
Gabriela Fernandez,
Gianmarco Sandoval,
Fred Jason Ferraras,
Tahule Benedicto Sano,
Virginie Nanju Fengwe,
Karen Valeria Santamaria,
Tyler TJ Fields,
Jonathan Denzel Saunders,
Jonathan Ray Fierro,
Sean Allen Saunders,
Jennifer Figueroa,
Lydia Gemma Siran,
Milton Daniel Flores,
Cecilia Segovia,
Stephanie Diane Flores.
Angelo Christian F. Serrano.
Stephanie Flores Arias.
Mariela Seriano with honors.
Milka B. Flores Caran.
Shahriar Shagosh Tasbi.
Zainab Fofana.
Janice Saisise with honors.
Akpokli Goku Foli Sosro.
Asma Shamim.
Dorblando Faso Asambe.
Lulsagad Shanko.
Aaron Lee Foster.
Aditya Sharma. Ling Ling Shi.
Arthur Marvin Fallow IV.
Ling Ling Shi.
Julia Jessica Francis.
Joanne Yun Shin with honors.
Violet Nyagucha Francis.
Charlotte Friedberg.
Jonathan Andrew Frio.
Christina B. Fumboy.
Veronica Funes.
Eli Shirani.
Evan Alexander Deal Goswick.
Lawrence Nicholas Schomburg.
Edgar Gacoso. There you go.
Angie Silva Vijami.
Anna Silvia Galeano.
Akosiwa Akpedzi Simon Dufanti.
Kimberly Diana Gomez.
Ilona Rebecca Sirotinen.
Chinyeri Nechi Shloli.
Miriam Marie Gonsalmeyer.
Antonina Smilo.
Pete Garay.
Amari Devon Nelson Smith.
Katie Jean Garcia.
Jasmine Doria Smith.
Martin Garcia.
Maria Carmel Smith.
Claudia Garcia Valle.
Stephanie So Chumsi.
Oscar Garcia Villatoro.
Anna Sohn.
Cynthia Garduno.
Yuberkis Sola.
Yetnayet Seyum Garadu.
Roberto Solarzano.
Karen Joy Gatmetan. Angie
Benjamin
Caballero
John
Gaviria.
Somerville with honors.
Hao Song.
Joshua Anthony Gale.
Kimberly Sorto.
Yeno Sosuni Gebeno.
Veronica Gabriela Soriano Lara with honors.
Samhar Gabrenegas.
Roxana Milrago Sorto.
Michael
Omar
Asefa
Suma.
Gebreselassie.
Katrina Lynn Stanford,
Wengel Bekele Gemu,
Mikhail Stanley,
Anthony Michael George,
Kayla Elizabeth Stobbs,
Rita Sophia Gansa,
Daria Elizabeth Sinko,
Joseph William Geis,
Tamara Nicole Stewart,
Jacob Clark Gilbert,
Julia Eileen Stewart,
Sebastian Gill,
Marcus Alexander Suriel,
Barakat Mesfin Gurma,
Eyob Semehegne Sugamo,
Monica E. Giron,
Andrea Supis,
Ayanke Sarah Ganisi,
Cheyenne Victoria Souza,
Koku Moise Goka Adokanu,
Jacob Swar,
Elizabeth Gomez,
Danielle Marie Swinton,
Sumit William Gomes,
Kadia Tusila,
Teresa Deepa Gomez,
Kathlia Faith Elue Tabe,
Veronica Nipa Gomez,
Asifa Endosa Tadese with honors,
Kimberly Judith Gomez,
Minia Getachew Tades,
Yualmo Antonio Gomez,
Myra Linda Tyra,
Andrea Carolina Gonzalez,
Samson Taku Takam,
Daisy Gonzalez,
John Lewis Nakima Talamambong with honors,
Suyapa Gonzalez,
Ana Maritza Televera Delgado,
Valeria Gonzalez,
Anais Georgia Tana,
Lucia Maria Gonzalez Coripuna,
Hanatu Ali Tarfa,
Salvatore Emilia Jesus Gonzalez Hurtado,
Donovan Nicholas Taraga,
Andrea Carlotta Gonzalez Noriega,
Ellie Tarshish,
Chantel Diedra Gordon,
Ekaterina Lillian Tao,
Christian Gordon Sr.,
Brittany Sade Taylor,
Karen Gora,
Rondell Taylor,
Michael Dennis Gauker,
Alphonse Jacquinot Chacunte,
John Patience Tsitsi Gova,
Sene Gebre Michel Tedla,
Michelle Green,
Ethiopia Jesesi Teferi,
Tervase A. Green,
Hermiela Tegenor,
Angel T. Griffin,
Mehlat Tesfai,
Victoria Lynn Grimes, Anna Grover,
Theodorus Zawoldi Tesfai,
Diego Giovanni Guajardo.
Ricky Tai.
Mirna Guandique Alvarez.
Asmau Tiang.
Gabriela Marisol Guerrero.
Esra Hassan.
Jessica Johanna Guevara.
Jennifer Lind Thomas.
Beatrice Guido.
Megan A. Thompson.
Alexandra Guillen.
Lloydette Victoria Thompson Taylor.
Geraldine Guillen.
Elijah Thornberry.
Dimitri Gwynn.
Alex Armel Tiaco.
Rahel Teshome Guyo.
Julia Tilke.
Avi Daniel Guzman.
Vanessa Wanhunga Nessa Kunjarao Henderson.
Anibal Rafael Guzman Gonzalez.
Terry Lisa Torrain.
Meharet Muse Habtewol.
Emma Susana Torriello with honors.
Farideh Hadavi.
Veronica Maria Torres Paez.
Mojan Haghigadian.
Adinki Victoria Toriani.
Shire Sharif Haidara.
Zachary Biotore.
Kibram Haile.
Tace Turinho.
Sabrina Natalie Haynes.
Helen Dong Tran.
Anne Halstead.
Ling Tran.
Dildeep Hanspal.
Mai Tran. Tammy Tui V. Tran.
Taylor Alexis Harley.
Tony Min Tran.
Tonya Harris.
Osman Traore.
Vichuda Vicky Hasayachinda.
Huang Trung.
Papagune Bendicte Tiombiano.
Rian Brandon Holloway.
Tracy Ann Heckel. Danae Hemmings.
Christopher Benjamin Heredia.
Fredman Hernandez.
Janet Elizabeth Hernandez.
Michael Tucker Jr. with honors.
Jennifer Lorena Hernandez.
Vivek Twati.
Jessica Hernandez.
Selena Justine Troxel.
Samuel Hernandez.
Bridget Tyler.
Sandra Elizabeth Hernandez.
David Ubiera.
Jessica Hernandez Bautista.
Karina Michelle Umanzor.
Iris Lizette Hernandez Camas.
Jonathan Umanzor.
Kevin Moises Hernandez Retana.
Alejandra Paredes with honors.
Kelly Patricia Hernandez Salas.
Tochukwu Georgina Ume.
Karen Beatriz Herrera Matus.
Veronica Uribe.
Nicole Marie Heron. Nadia Huchuk.
Mariam Azimi Bayat with honors.
Jessilyn R. Hidalgo.
Diego Rolando Valenzuela.
Yursika Yorianne Hins.
Danny Emilio Valerio.
Santana Hins.
Ingrid Valladares Cruz.
Akita Danielle Hodge.
Lisa Rachel Vallado.
Ashley Elizabeth Holmes.
Nicole Van Wyck.
Alexander John Holt.
Jennifer Vargas.
Zainab Hushmandian.
Andrea Alia Vasquez.
Mangyue Hu.
Nestor Raul Vasquez Young.
Christian Huaman.
Junior Jaramillo Katrina.
Saeed Husseini.
Yvette Vega Cruz.
Nyan Hoon.
Kathleen Michelle Javier Villatoro. Tony Arnett Ingram.
Hannah Gatachel Velacini.
Mary Tony
Marisa
Innes.
Vieira Viana.
Marisa Maria Viana.
Marcia Enid Irizarry Snyder.
Jasmine Natalie Villatoro.
Axel Jablonski.
Sulma Maricela Villatoro.
Nell Jacques.
Maria Rosario Villegas Pinto.
Arif Jadji. Iyeye Jagne.
Elaine Nicole Venier.
Maimuna Jahate. Peter Bonner Jala. Kiera Danielle Johnson. Michael William Johnson.
Mohammed Isa Jalawan.
Thien Vo with honors.
Jacqueline M. Jefferson.
Niranan Tamasiri Woloto.
Kaylee Vanessa Jimenez Perez.
Theodore Vossler.
Noemi Angelica Huron.
Albert John von der Hoog.
Jackson John.
Khadidra Andrea Walters.
J. Dean Johns.
Wuling Wang.
Aaron N. Johnson.
Alexis Yvonne Washington.
Lucas Andrew Johnson Julio.
Dr. Shirley N. Washington.
Carter Alexander Frank Jones.
Omari Jordan Watson.
Gabrielle Holly Ann Jones.
Mangli M. Wie.
Adam Michael Jordan.
Kenneth Billy Whedon Jr. with honors.
Chameli Jordan.
Kavindi Verwati.
Juan Diego Hoya.
And Matilda Weisgerber.
Jonathan Hamid Kaba Jr.
Wendy Dawn Wells.
Malay Calavadia.
Jonathan Robert Wenk.
Cynthia Olive Kamga.
Kennedy Diana Wickham.
Mika M. Kamuza.
Victor F. Williams.
Rula K. Canios.
Wesley Thurston Williams.
Agathonia Eleni Caravangelos.
Diamond Vieta Williams Kemp.
Hanan Casmiro.
Alexander Paul Wilson.
Gaganpreet Kaur.
Yakima Esther Latoya Wilson.
Billy Harold Kayam.
Kathleen McCarthy Wilshire.
Abarash S. Cabeda.
Carlton Jerome Wimberly Jr.
Samuel Kabere.
Frehiwa Tufa Wadajo.
James Leo Keller.
Sion Tiferi Woldestad.
Shang Emerson Keller.
With honors.
Ruo Han Su.
Grace Alexia Kemgain.
Catherine Juliana Chavez Carpillo.
Emma Louise Kepley.
Bruce Cassie Farah.
Samuel Ferris Kessler.
Justin Hogunyi.
Larissa Boyiga Kecha.
Alexa Young.
Abdul Rahman Khan.
Joseph Lee Young.
Daniel Musa Khan.
Albor Zafari.
Milan Karal.
Swanet Sambrano.
Amal Kashamova.
Catherine Stefania Zavaleta Mercado.
Sion Michael Cabram.
Jordanos Ephraim Zageye.
Hyun Suk Kim.
Vital Zepaya.
Carter Elena Juliet King.
Jiqian Zhang.
Ebony Nicole King.
Salome Berhe Zaratzi.
Irvin Jordan King.
Sonette Beatrice Zenzu.
Raymond J. King.
Winfrida Michael Zoka.
Cheyenne Elizabeth Kingrey.
Kofi Kojo. Vanasia Kofele Nagapeth. Suzanne Belinda Komewo Nijozem. Belado Kona.
Jonathan Beatty.
Morele Denali Kochu.
Darlene Davis.
Vincent Achille Cuaco de Almeida.
Can't see.
Vientien Grace Elise Ibang Mebulu.
Melissa Camille Bachaman Quachu.
Anthony Joseph.
Francois Victoire Kepedeme.
Senka Maduma Bandara.
Hyojin Kwan.
Henry Mindisi with honors.
Amanda Lorraine Kuhn.
Daniel Miklowitz.
Deanna Reese Kuhn.
Hanan Alawi Musa.
Anisha Kunvar.
Florian Ngoga Ngoga.
Nancy Kwakye.
Quantre Smith.
Anthony Sean Harris.
Narjes Tamahibisi.
Scan this one so they can change the screen. Scan this one so they can change the screen.
Tetsfimila Tonalaba with honors. Rachel Marie Walker. Sharon Woodward. Daniel Zalea with honors. Joseph Linkio. Jesserica Alfonso. Azari Asagri with honors. Shaim Zaid. Marie-Alexandre Odom with honors. Benjamin Todd Bromley-Coolidge with honors. Michael Philip Gibson with honors. Alexis Miguel Angua. Now graduates, some of y'all, I'm gonna have an after-school quiz on about following arrows when y'all come up here next time. Or in another, y'all tell the next class, okay? Graduates, in keeping with tradition at commencement, at this time, please move the tassel on your mortarboard from the right to the left side. Congratulations. Miss Jane Smith, President of the Montgomery College Alumni Association, please come forward.
Congratulations, class of 2019. I am delighted to induct you into the Montgomery College Alumni Association. Please turn to the end of your program where you will find the induction pledge. With the Montgomery College alumni who are present, including the class of 2019, please stand and join me in reading the pledge together. Here we go. I am a graduate of Montgomery College. I have achieved my goal of graduation through my own hard work and dedication and with the support of my family, friends, and faculty. As a graduate, I am now a member of the Montgomery College Alumni Association. In this capacity, I have earned the privilege of a mutually beneficial and lasting relationship with the college and its community. Today, I move forward to embrace new opportunities and to meet the challenges that lie ahead. But as I do, I also recognize that my Montgomery College experience will remain forever an important part of my life. The opportunity of a Montgomery College education confers upon me a responsibility to help ensure the continued strength of this great institution. I will not forget this responsibility. I am a graduate of Montgomery College. Welcome to the Montgomery College Alumni Association. Congratulations. Please come see me at the alumni tent after the ceremony.
Graduates, it's time now to find out which 4 of you won the $1,000 transfer scholarship. All right, here are the directions. Open your diploma cover and look on your letter for a silver embossed Montgomery College Foundation seal. If you are a winner, please wave your hand and be recognized. I hear someone saying I got one. Oh, there's one. I saw a hand. Where's another one? I saw another hand. All right, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the conclusion of our ceremony. Winners should see the Montgomery College Foundation representative who will be located right side of the stage to claim your award. And then, ladies and gentlemen, please stand and remain in front of your seat for the academic recessional. Thank you to everyone for attending. Safe travels, and congratulations again to the class of 2019.